We'll continue with the question and answer portion. We move to question number 6. Mr. Melicone, first up. Tell us a time when you work collectively or collaboratively with a group of people to a successful outcome.
Thank you. This one's a challenging one because a lot of the things that I have done, I've done with others, and I've never been the leader. I always tried to be the worker, the helper, the doer. I know sometimes when you take on a task, there's a lot of people pushing in one direction, and you've got to play your part. And sometimes you're not in charge of how big your part is. The best example that I can think of is years ago when I was working with a bunch of safety and law professionals. We were told about some fire safety concerns at the hotels in the Barbados. And we ended up going down there, and we brought everybody with us. We brought the fire department down with us. We brought the police service with us. We brought members of the Canadian military. And we went down there, and we stepped in and said we were there to help, and that's exactly what we did. And we helped them at the level that they needed it.
In all my roles, whether it's been president of the Chamber, president of the Shorewalk Association, leading the skateboard park or Kinsman Pool initiatives, collaboration is what brings you to a successful result. But most recently, I'm very proud of what we did with the new high school here in Fort Erie. And that was a situation where myself and Councillor Hill sat down and agreed that for the betterment of the community as a whole, we should work collaboratively. I don't think anybody who's read the newspapers in the last 4 years would find it strange to believe that Councillor Hill and I have not always seen eye to eye. But that on that issue, we recognize that we should be setting our personal differences aside on all other issues, sitting down and working collaboratively, because it wasn't about my ego or his ego. It was what's best collaboratively for the whole community. And I'm very proud to say that that facility will be opening in 2017. Thank you.
I can think of lots of examples, because that's probably where in my working career is particularly what I had to do. But to look at a local instance, I've been involved with Kinsman here in Fort Erie for a number of years. And if you put your thinking caps on and go back a few years, you probably remember the Zellers Moonwalk. Well, when they were doing the Moonwalk, the Kinsman organized a barbecue in order to get people to stay and accompany them and stay there a little longer. It kind of fell apart, but the Great Strides Walk for CF came back. We were first to jump on with them and make sure that all the logistics were looked after, and they can't thank us enough to this day. So we're really appreciative working with the group, and I think we've shown what we can do.
I worked with a group, and it started out in Douglastown. I worked with a family that's originally from Fort Erie. They moved to Black Creek. I worked with them. We wanted to build a community up. We had a school, and the school board closed it. So we lost the heart and soul of our community was lost. So we had to do something. So to build up the community, we started a thing called Canada Day, and it was called the Peace and Friendship Festival. And it was really, really big. The seed money came from the federal government. And the Canada Day was handed over back in 1967 over to the Chamber of Commerce, and it is now called the Friendship Festival, and it was a big boom for the whole town of Fort Erie. So that was one thing. We also got the school, after many years of hard work. We have a beautiful community center. Come on out. If you got kids, bring them to Black Creek.
continue with the theme of working together. If elected, what would you do to ensure town council and developers work in harmony with each other for the betterment of Fort Erie?
Well, the premise of that question will assume that the next 4 years will be much different than my previous 4 years, because that's exactly what didn't happen. Development happens naturally in any community. You really have to try hard to stop it. And you don't have to say yes to everything, but you should at least be willing to have the conversation. And if a development proposal or other investment is not necessarily what you think is best for the community, tell the developers. They might have something else on the drawing board. I think to work in harmony with the development community just means having an opening ear, being upfront, and being honest. And council can do a lot of things to support the development community. Last night at council is a great example. The Canadian Motor Speedway proponents were there. Council passed a resolution that's also going to be put forward at the regional level so we can begin lobbying the province for the infrastructure funding we need for the Bourne Road interchange to get that project going. So we can do more good than harm if we put our minds to it. Thank you.
I know that in the past, developers have had many a headache with the town of Fort Erie. Not so with council, but with the planning department. What town council can do is work with the town staff, particularly the planning department, to make sure that the processes are simple, easy to understand, and not being duplicated over and over again. I know a development near me is taking much, much longer than developers ever planned. So discussion needs to be open and frank.
What I would like to see happen, we are already paying the region for an economic development officer. They have a full staff. They have handled multi-million-dollar projects. They've gotten the liaison between the councils, various councils that use them, and with the Ontario government. The Motor Speedway is too big for one man to handle. We need the regional EDTC to work with us, make the roadway smooth so we can grease this project and get it going. But you need somebody with expertise. The region staff have the expertise for this project. We don't have the expertise in this town. Thank you.
This weekend, I had the pleasure of being at the strategic planning session at the town hall, and there was a lot of talk about focus. And fortunately for us, we're in a position where our town council seems to be really good at that. My part would only be that of councillor, and obviously, when you got a group like that, there's going to be healthy debate, and I'm sure that focus will not be missed. Obviously, being a representative of Ward 2, I'll be seeking counsel from the community. Thank you.
You'll be up first on this one. It's no surprise with the infrastructure taking up so many questions. Growth costs money. Given the town's aging infrastructure, how do you propose we tackle this challenge while being fiscally responsible?
One of the first things that I would highly recommend is that all the business owners in town get invited to a session where they can have a frank, open discussion with them as to why they are doing business here in Fort Erie. If we know why they're here, then we can go out and attract businesses to come to Fort Erie. That will give us a larger tax base, that will spread out the taxes, that will allow us to update our infrastructure.
We had money. We had lots of money. We had over $36 million worth of money from the slots. I can only find $6 billion. That money should have been used for our infrastructure. We've got miles and miles of water pipe that is cast iron, and cast iron is corroded. So those cast iron pipes are not working. They're filled with corrosion. They have to be dug up. The mess in Crescent Park, it's unforgivable that people for 45 years have put up with transit pipe that's broken, and it was broken when it was put in, and transit is asbestos, and people are getting ill, people are getting cancer. It's a crying shame that it was allowed to happen. $26 million could have replaced all that. A lot of stuff could have been replaced, but it never happened because we're not focused. God knows where all that money went, but a lot of people left town with their pockets bulging with our money.
I worked out the numbers. We're making about, we're not making anything at this, actually. This is what's being collected, the 13% that you and I, the residents of Fort Erie, are paying annually for those of us that live here and pay taxes here. Really, our share of that, we're in the computer technology era. The fact that they're behind years at the provincial and federal level in terms of figuring out how much to pay us, that's a real problem. We've got to hold them accountable so that we do get our share. We're expecting 16 million visitors in the Niagara region, and working the same way with the $3.2 billion that they're going to be spending and the $400 million collected within the region on that 13%. Why we're having trouble getting 1% of it, the $400 million? 1% of it is 4. How much do we really need? That's what it comes down to. Let's collect it.
A colleague of mine on council was very fond of saying, pay me now or pay me later. And that's how you can best appropriately describe what we have going on for infrastructure. Investment has to be made consistently. Nobody likes a tax increase, but a 1% tax increase gives about $200,000 to the town. Over the course of 5 years, with no other tax increases in years 2 through 5, in year 5 that equates to $1 million coming in every year after that in perpetuity. $1 million are roughly the average cost to resurface a road in Crescent Park. We have to be consistent. We have to set those dollars aside. It's always tough for councillors to do because there's never any ribbon cutting that happens the day after you set money into a reserve, but it's necessary. On the water wastewater side, we need to look at the same challenges and the same investments. It costs more money to fix the water main after it breaks than it does as part of a strategic capital investment program. Let's set the dollars aside. Let's get the work done. Thank you.
Jardine, you'll start on this question. Transit is important to our town. What ideas do you have to increase ridership and provide cost-affordable expansion of the service area?
Not really committed to transit. For a long time, you heard about one-horse town. Well, for a long time, we were a one-bus town, and it doesn't do the job. Vast areas of this town never ever sees a bus. I live in the Stevensville area. We have a thing called Safari Niagara. In the summertime, anybody who wants to come to Stevensville by bus, they're out of luck. It would be a great place. Water park. It's got animals. It's got so much action going on there. Thousands and thousands of people come from all over the peninsula to go there. But if you don't have a car in the town of Fort Erie, in Ward 2, or Jarvis Street, or Crescent Park, you cannot get to Stevensville by bus. We need proper bus, and we need it in tune with what the wants and needs of the people.
As discussed by many up at the table here about expanding the tourism and the travelers, the number of travelers coming through town, the income flow that they provide to our businesses and the taxes that are collected from those functions. The reality is we need to allocate those funds that are needed to suit the needs of our riders, their employers, and perhaps even factor tourism into that. If we don't know what the needs are, we really don't have a direction. We have to have that first. Thank you.
Geographically, we're a huge community, 166 square kilometers, and unfortunately, most of the time that our buses are on the roads, they're spent going from point A to point B. We spend more money per capita on transit than most larger cities, and yet we get less of a service. Is it because we're not interested? Absolutely not. It's just because of the nature of the beast we're dealing with here in Fort Erie. We've made good strides. There's still a lot more to do. Conversations are currently underway with the region to expand transit, which would then include Stevensville, Black Creek, and Douglastown. We've been looking at a pilot project for the last 2 years, hoping to bring them into the routes. The best way that we can increase ridership is let people experience the ease of public transit from an early age. A few years ago, we had free transit for students in the summertime to get them to various amenities, across town. And I'd look to bring that back. If you don't expose it to them as a youth, they're not going to take advantage of it as adults. Thank you.
I had a student that worked down on Bridgeburg in the old town of Fort Erie. He lived in Crystal Beach. He commuted to work every day to work downtown over the course of the summer months as a summer student, and he couldn't get to work on time. Even though he left his house to catch the bus at 7:45, it wouldn't arrive in Bridgeburg until 8:45 when work started at 8:30. So we certainly have some logistics to work out, some ways to try and speed up transit to get people to the ends of town in a much better time frame than we do now.
Hold on, Jeff. I'm just going to read it, Jeff. What strategies do you think council can implement to sustain our current business community and to encourage other development opportunities?
I had the pleasure of watching Saratoga, the horse town, grow up from the very early 80s to where it is now. And one thing that I do know is there has to be many parallel successes. It's not just one drive. Just as I mentioned earlier about the college having a symbiotic relationship with the racetrack, that goes hand in hand with other businesses. Recently had a discussion with a constituent about a KFC perhaps on Garrison Road. Really, if we don't have a couple of industries that are supporting people and their income and driving people to go to the KFC, we have a problem. The reality is it's a multifaceted drive. That's the only way it's going to work. It's going to have to be a whole bunch of elements working together and working at the same time, period.
Council doesn't create jobs. I say that every opportunity I get. But council can implement different policies and practices to encourage the business community to do the best they can with the environment that we give them. And the best thing that council can do is what the current council is currently doing, is taking a proactive approach to encourage and support the attractors of the community, the Marina Development Project, the Fort Erie Racetrack Lands Development Project, the Canadian Motor Speedway Project. If these projects come to fruition, a rising tide raises all boats. We simply don't have the time or the resources to help every single small business. I wish that we did. As a past president of the Chamber of Commerce, I know that that was one of my sincere desires. It's just not possible. So let's focus our energy on the big players. Everybody else will benefit if we can get them here. Thank you.
We certainly have a number of projects that are in the works. We can get the Canadian Motor Speedway, the marina. I think other projects will follow in behind them. Once people know that this town is back open for business, I think they'll come. I said it before and I'll say it again. Meet with the business owners that are here now. Find out why they're doing business in Fort Erie and what works for them. And then let's promote that to companies that may have an interest in coming to Fort Erie. And the last part, as always, we have industrial land. Let's have it shovel ready so that they can come here and start business in a very short period of time.
We had a project, and it was agreed to back in 1980. And the project was a main trunk sewer line that would close down a cesspool that the people of Stevensville and Black Creek have to use for their sewage. That trunk line was supposed to go through according to an agreement made at the Ontario Municipal Board, and a judge made the ruling. The region was on board. That trunk line would have gone right through where the marina is. The marina cannot grow. You cannot do anything with the marina unless you have sewage. They have water. Water's gotten there. They need a sewer line. The sewer line will continue down along the parkway and end up at the Anger Road sewage treatment plant. We gotta live up to our promises. We don't do that. We had two people, Wayne Redikoff and Doug Martin, killed that sewer project. And the money went into some other land.